now we're all trying to figure out what do you do with that. Like I immediately shot a memo, a series of questions to Nvidia saying, well, what does that mean? And when you don't know what it means, and I've spent 12 years trying to understand Nvidia, then what are the people going to do is like, we will own it because they just hear that it goes up. We are now in a moment where Nvidia is too hard for most people to understand, and we need Jensen to explain it.
Jim Cramer opens by discussing Nvidia and its CEO, Jensen Huang, ahead of a presentation at the Goldman Sachs Communicopia conference. Cramer addresses market confusion surrounding Nvidia, dispelling the notion of a slowdown but acknowledging the complexity of Nvidia's new, highly advanced chip technology. He highlights how Nvidia's collaboration with Oracle on a large-scale AI supercomputer demonstrates the company's ongoing innovation and dominance in the AI space, but also notes that Nvidia has become increasingly difficult for the average investor to fully understand. Ben Ritus, head of technology research at Melius Research, shares insights on Nvidia's stock performance and its broader market context. He notes that Nvidia is currently undergoing a product transition and faces macroeconomic concerns, but he doesn't view the stock as a falling knife. Ritus emphasizes Nvidia's short-term margin pressures due to production issues with its new Blackwell chips but remains optimistic about the company's future, particularly in AI, software, and cloud services. He points out that Nvidia is still well-positioned for long-term growth despite near-term challenges. David Solomon, CEO of Goldman Sachs, focuses on the broader impact of AI and Nvidia's role in accelerating computing power. He underscores the importance of AI in driving both cost efficiencies and productivity gains for businesses. Solomon, after moderating a discussion with Jensen Huang, highlights Huang's optimism about Nvidia's rapid pace of innovation and the company's ability to deliver valuable computing solutions across industries. He also mentions that while many companies are investing heavily in AI, the implementation of these technologies to improve business processes will take time.
Let's get a mad dash in, talk a little NVIDIA. Jensen Huang, of course, the well-known CEO, founder of the company, going to be a guest at Goldman's Communicopia conference. I believe, Jim, on stage very early in the morning Pacific time with David Solomon, the CEO of Goldman Sachs.
And there's very specifically, we're going to talk about the problem of NVIDIA. There's a lot of the network's kind of view that I heard yesterday was a slowdown. That's just not true. There is no slowdown. But what there is a complication. This new chip's very, very powerful, really hard to make, but there's a couple of releases today, really good release from Oracle and Nvidia together, talking about, and this is the complication, AI supercomputer, the largest in the cloud, to deliver up to 131,072 Nvidia GPUs to enable customers to build, train, and inference AI at scale. Now we're all over our heads. See, now we're all trying to figure out what do you do with that. Like I immediately shot a memo, a series of questions to Nvidia saying, well, what does that mean? And when you don't know what it means, and I've spent 12 years trying to understand Nvidia, then what are the people going to do is like, we will own it because they just hear that it goes up.
It's now Ben Ritus, Melius Research head of technology research, and it's good to see you, Ben. I figure you'd have to say the stock, you could call it a bear market, I guess, although the bull market was like nothing, the likes of which we've never seen. I'm channeling Trump. But it was an amazing bull run. It's down about 23%, though. Is it in a bear market, or is this a time to actually is it a falling knife?
I don't think it's a falling knife, Joe, and it's good to be with you on such an important day in our history, in New York especially. I think that NVIDIA right now, last year, actually, if you remember, it took a break in the back half of the year. This is more severe. I think there's some macro worries and whatnot. But the big thing about NVIDIA is they're in a product transition. And the rest of semis also is absorbing the potential recessionary risks and some other things going on. So I think that in terms of NVIDIA, one of the big surprises on their last call was taking gross margins down in the near term. And semi stocks that hit that usually with a gross margin bump tend to not perform anymore for a little while until they get that going again. But I think they'll come out on the other side of that within a few quarters. And I think that'll be a big topic when he speaks later today if folks are able to ask questions. Folks need to allocate their spending towards AI, which is potentially impacting some other sectors. That's been bigger potentially in the first half. I think that's going to be a big narrative again next year. So, look, I wish the macro data was better, but I feel NVIDIA is pretty well insulated, but I do feel like it's gobbling, a lot of mind share within the sector in general with this sell-off.
We hear margins at Nvidia and we just go, oh yeah, that's pretty good, whatever they happen to be. And a company that size, it just can't last where the margins stay where they are. So what would be considered, okay, margins are falling more, they're spending even more money, trying to make the next generation chips than we thought. And this is actually troubling that margins are going to drop to this low, because they're still going to be so rich even after a pretty big drop.
Well, the thing is, NVIDIA, is putting together tens of thousands of little parts of these chips, and it's very complex. They do deserve to have a very high ASP with the complexity of their product. And the other thing is they, over time, are going to have more software and services, which are very high margin. So some other companies, maybe Apple and others, get into this area where their business becomes an ecosystem, and they can tap into other elements of that. So I think that right now we have this Blackwell production issue, temporary. It hits gross margin, and then I do think they grow other things such as software and cloud and other things that allow the margins to stay relatively high.
So David Solomon, who's moderating this conversation, asked the crucial question around the return on investment of AI. Huang says it's creating cost reductions and productivity gains for companies by using NVIDIA's GPUs. Companies are reducing computing times by about 20 times, and that Gen AI is still in the first wave. Demand is so great. Every dollar they spend with us, that translates into about $5 of rentals. He also said that training and then using AI models, which is known as inference, actually requires less energy. So that in turn will be a benefit for the company. Shares are higher right now, but off the highs of the day. David?
Yeah, one of the few names, in fact, is higher in a general market that is down 1.5% in the S&P, a bit less, as we mentioned. Mega cap tech not the leader in terms of declines this morning. We got
Josh, Nvidia today. It's sort of obvious focus of what we are talking about here at the conference. David Solomon was on stage earlier for a fireside with Jensen Huang, Nvidia's founder and CEO, of course, who was pretty bullish, obviously, on the outlook for AI demand and ROI, which he said both remain high. Server racks are more cost-efficient option for accelerated computing.
Today, you have 8 sectors in the S&P 500 down 1% or more. Tech, the only sector that was able to go green. The best performing sub-industry group in the whole S&P 500 today is semiconductors. The SMH is up 1%. 60% of the components are higher on the day. That's versus 5% of all S&P companies. Nvidia is the 7th best performing stock in the market. And I think it really speaks to just this idea that on days like today, weeks like this week, last week, and people say, well, I don't really know what I can count on as far as earnings growth for this theme or that theme or the other theme. They know this theme, the spending is happening. And so it's in a very strange way, these stocks have a little bit of like almost a defensive tilt to them. People say, all right, I'll default to Nvidia. At least I know that's a huge earnings growth story. By the way, it's also off significantly from the record high. So I think that's what's behind the action that we're seeing in Nvidia today.
To describe the tone of the conversations that you've had thus far with the CEOs who are here about AI, the spending that they're making, and the expected return on that investment?
Sure. I only got here late last night, so I've had a few conversations this morning. I was on stage with Jensen from Nvidia, this morning. But there's been, everywhere you go, people want to talk about this, and what I'd say is, from a macro perspective, this is a big secular trend, an acceleration in the speed of compute. And all businesses are thinking about how they can create real use cases to change processes, serve their customers or clients better, create efficiencies in their business. And it depends who you talk to, what kind of business they have. When you step back and say, how are we going to implement this? I'd say, when we think about it at Goldman Sachs, we have lots of super smart people. We're thinking about productivity first. But when you look at lots of businesses, they're thinking about productivity and they're also thinking about cost efficiency. Cost efficiency requires you to make investment and change processes. That takes time. So what I'd say is going on when you're engaged with CEOs on this topic is they're really trying to figure out, how can we take this increased compute capacity and how can we use it in a way that can both increase productivity and allow us to gain efficiency. But any executive that you would talk to would say changing processes significantly in business is hard and it takes time. And so I think this is going to be a process. I think it's going to be ongoing. But I think it's real, and it's something that's going to have a big effect on the way people operate their businesses, just as the cloud did, just as the internet did, just as the growth of compute 40 years ago did. So this is real, and I think people are very, very focused on it.
In conclusion, Jim Cramer, Ben Ritus, and David Solomon all provide valuable insights into NVIDIA's current market position and the evolving role of AI in business. Cramer highlights the complexity surrounding NVIDIA's cutting-edge chip technology, particularly its collaboration with Oracle, showing how the company remains a leader in AI innovation. Ritus emphasizes the short-term challenges NVIDIA faces, especially with its product transitions and margin pressures, but maintains an optimistic outlook for its long-term growth. Solomon brings the discussion full circle, underlining how NVIDIA's advancements in AI are driving greater efficiency and productivity across industries, though the widespread implementation of AI technologies may take time. Overall, the conversation reflects NVIDIA's importance in the technology sector, especially in shaping the future of AI. While there are immediate challenges, such as understanding NVIDIA's complex technology and navigating economic uncertainties, the company is poised for future growth and continues to play a key role in the evolving AI landscape. The insights from these industry leaders reinforce the broader implications of AI for businesses, investors, and the market as a whole. How do you feel about NVIDIA's role in the AI industry, and do you agree with the optimism surrounding its future growth? Do you think the short-term challenges NVIDIA faces will significantly impact its long-term success in the AI space?